116 years of war have distilled the fate of nations down to a single, terrifying equation. On one side, the flower of French chivalry, armored in steel and pride. On the other, the English peasant, with a piece of yew wood. For a century, the result has always been the same. The sky darkens, the arrow storm screams, and the knights die. The English longbow is not just a weapon, it is a myth, a divine judgment that has humbled kings at Crécy, Poitiers, and Agincourt. It is the unanswerable argument of the battlefield. But today, April 15th, 1450, on a damp afternoon in Normandy, the equation is about to change. The air does not hiss with the flight of arrows, it shakes with a sound like the cracking of the world's foundation. In a muddy field near the village of Formigny, the Middle Ages are ending, not with a whimper, but with thunder. Sir Thomas Kyriel stands near the small stone bridge over the Aure brook, watching the French lines ripple in the distance. He is a veteran of the old wars, a man who knows the rhythm of slaughter by heart. His army, 4,000 strong, is deployed in the classic formation that has broken France for generations. The archers are on the flanks, their heels dug into the soft earth, their breath misting in the cool spring air. They are waiting for the French to make the mistake they always make, the blind, arrogant charge into the killing zone. Kyriel feels the familiar weight of victory in his palm. He has chosen his ground well. The brook protects his rear, the gardens and orchards break up the approach. He does not know that he is standing on the precipice of a new world. He glances at his captains, men who have grown rich on the ransoms of French nobles, and nods. The trap is set. Across the field, the Comte de Clermont watches the English line with a cold, calculating patience that is entirely new to French command. He sees the English banners snapping in the wind. He sees the white coats of the archers, the glittering wall of dismounted men-at-arms. The ghosts of Agincourt are screaming at him to charge, to wash away the shame of the past with a glorious, headlong assault. But Clermont does not move. He knows that to charge now is suicide. The longbow's effective range is 300 yards, a zone of death that no horseman can cross alive. But Clermont has brought something the English do not respect. Not yet. He signals to the rear. The oxen teams strain forward, dragging heavy mud-caked carriages through the mire. The English archers shift uneasily as they see the dark shapes being wheeled onto the flanks of the French line. They are accustomed to facing men, horses, even siege engines, but these are different. These are field guns, culverins, bronze tubes cast by the Bureau brothers, the technocrats who are slowly strangling the English occupation. They look small, almost insignificant against the mass of the army. Kyriel watches them, perhaps with a sneer. Artillery is for knocking down castle walls, for sieges that last months. It has no place in the fluid chaos of open battle. It is too slow, too heavy, too inaccurate. He orders his men to hold fast. Let them play with their toys, he thinks. They will have to come to us eventually. The first master gunner brings the linstock down. The flash is blinding, a sudden, violent tear in the grey afternoon light. A split second later, the roar hits the English line, a physical blow that rattles teeth and stops hearts. A 4-pound iron ball screams across the gap, flying flat and fast, far beyond the arc of any arrow. It does not arc gracefully, it punches through the air with brutal linear violence. It strikes the packed ranks of the English archers. There is no glorious deflection off armor, no heroic parry. The ball shears through flesh and bone, taking the leg off one man, the head off another. It smashes a third into red ruin before burying itself in the earth. A gap opens in the English line, not from fear, but from physics. Silence follows the thunder, broken only by the screams of the maimed. Then, the second gun fires. Another tear in the air, another furrow of blood ploughed through the English ranks. For the first time in 100 years, the English yeoman looks across the field and realizes he cannot hit back. He draws his bow, feeling the familiar tension. But the target is too far. The French are standing 400 yards away, watching, waiting. The psychological foundation of the English army, the certainty that they are the hunters and the French are the prey, begins to fracture. Kyriel rides along the line, shouting for discipline, but he sees the terror in his men's eyes. This is not war as they know it. This is execution. The bombardment continues. It is slow, methodical, maddening. Each shot is a hammer blow to English morale. The archers, men who have trained since childhood to stand their ground against charging knights, cannot stand this passive destruction. They are being dismantled piece by piece by a machine. The discipline that held firm at Crécy dissolves into a desperate need for action. A captain on the flank screams the order, or perhaps the men simply break on their own. "Forward!" the cry goes up, ragged and furious. "Take the guns!" The English line surges forward. Thousands of archers drop their bows, draw their heavy lead mauls and swords, and sprint across the open ground. They abandon their defensive positions, leaving the safety of the brook and the gardens. They pour across the field, a white wave of rage crashing toward the French artillery. The French gunners scramble back, abandoning their pieces as the English swarm over the battery. The yeomen hack at the gun carriages, cheering wildly, believing they have turned the tide. They have silenced the thunder. They drag the heavy bronze tubes back toward their lines, flushed with the adrenaline of success. But as Kyriel watches them stream back, disorderly and exhausted, his blood runs cold. They have done exactly what Clermont wanted. They have broken their formation. Clermont raises his sword. The French men-at-arms, fresh and disciplined, lower their lances. They are not charging a wall of arrows now. They are charging a mob. The collision is horrific. Steel crashes against mail and leather. The English, winded from their charge and encumbered by the captured guns, are driven back. The melee swirls in the center of the field, a chaotic grinder of death. Kyriel throws his reserves into the fight, desperate to stabilize the line. The battle hangs in the balance. The English are tough, stubborn, fighting with the ferocity of men who know they are far from home. For a moment, it seems they might hold. They might force a stalemate as the sun begins to dip lower in the sky. Then, a sound drifts over the ridge to the south. At first, it is just a low rumble, indistinguishable from the din of battle. But it grows, deepening into the rhythmic thunder of thousands of hooves. Kyriel looks up, hope flaring in his chest. Somerset? Is it the relief force from Caen? A cheer ripples through the English ranks. "St. George! Somerset!" But as the riders crest the hill near the old windmill, the cheering dies in their throats. The banners, snapping in the wind, are not the lions of England. They are the ermine of Brittany. It is Arthur de Richemont, the Constable of France. Richemont pauses on the ridge, looking down at the valley of Formigny like a hawk assessing a dying rabbit. He sees the English line bent into a chaotic U-shape, their backs to the brook, their front engaged with Clermont. Their flank is wide open. It is the nightmare of every commander, total envelopment. He draws his sword, the metal gleaming in the fading light. He does not wait. He does not parley. He kicks his horse into a gallop. 1,200 heavy cavalrymen, the elite breakers of armies, surge down the slope behind him. The ground trembles. The impact is catastrophic. The Breton cavalry hits the exposed English flank with the force of a tidal wave. There are no stakes to stop the horses this time. No organized volleys of arrows to bring them down. The knights smash into the mass of archers, lances shattering, horses trampling men into the mud. The English army is compressed, squeezed between Clermont's anvil and Richemont's hammer. The cohesion of the force disintegrates instantly. It is no longer a battle, it is a harvest. Kyriel tries to rally his center, turning his men to face the new threat, but the maneuver is impossible in the crush. The formations buckle and snap. Panic, cold and absolute, sweeps through the ranks. Men who stood firm against the odds an hour ago now throw down their weapons and run. But there is nowhere to go. The brook that was meant to protect their rear is now a trap, a watery barrier cutting off retreat. The water turns red, choked with the bodies of men trying to scramble up the slippery banks. In the gardens of the village, a final tragedy plays out. 500 English archers, the last remnants of the legendary corps, are cut off. They back into the orchards, using the apple trees and low stone walls for cover. They have no arrows left. They fight with daggers, axes, and rocks. The French close in, relentless. There is no chivalry here, no taking of ransoms for commoners. The memory of burned French villages and looted towns hardens the hearts of the victors. The English tomb. They will call this place later The screams of the dying echo through the pleasant spring evening until one by one they are silenced. Sir Thomas Kyriel, bleeding and surrounded, surrenders his sword. He is spared, a prize for a king, but his army is gone. 4,000 men lie dead or dying in the mud of Formigny. The brook runs thick with blood, winding its way down to the sea that will not bring them home. Sir Matthew Gough, the only captain to sense the end, cuts his way out. As dawn breaks over Normandy, the silence is heavier than the thunder of the guns. The field is a graveyard of a military system. The longbow lies broken in the mud next to the bronze cannonball that made it obsolete. For 100 years, England held the tactical key to Europe. Today, the lock was changed. If you want to understand how the world changed, how the knight fell, and the gun arose, subscribe and join us next time.